Welcome to War Room Impeachment, episode 89 on the John Fredericks Radio Network, the Salem Broadcast Network, America's Voice .news. We're up on Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple iTunes, and all the rest. I'm Raheem Kassam, broadcasting from the historic Breitbart Embassy here on Capitol Hill, joined in studio by one of our fantastic War Room researchers, Greg Mans, and very grateful to be joined down the line by the content manager for the Bongino Report, Matthew Palumbo. Matthew, thanks so much for joining us here today on Boxing Day.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Boxing Day, it's December the 26th, the year of our Lord, 2019, but December the 26th, typically known as Boxing Day in both the United Kingdom and Canada. I'm going to throw out a question on this. Before we jump into impeachment, we're going to be doing a breakdown of how the media has reacted to all of this impeachment saga from the very beginning right down to today on Boxing Day. And I want to throw the question out there to either of you guys. Either of you know the history of Boxing Day?
No, you're going to make me look very ignorant, I think.
Greg?
Is it when you put your Christmas ornaments away?
Well, it's not bad. Boxing Day was typically the day where the servants would collect from the households that they served whatever was disregarded, unwanted in those houses, whether it be leftover food, unwanted gifts, old items that were replacing the gifts. They would be literally boxed up, and the servants would be able to take away these boxes and then effectively use them as gifts for their family. So kind of a delayed maybe Christmas Day for them. How about that? The more you know, guys.
So it's like a Christmas for used items, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's re-gifting day, which I suppose there's a few re-gifters out there. Nothing wrong with that, right? Hey, want to jump to the let's call them the re-gifters themselves, the people who take the information, launder it, and serve it to the American public in a fashion that they perceive is best. I bet you guys didn't think I could segue from Boxing Day to the media, but there you go. I did it.
Well done.
That was a hard one. My brain was in overdrive there. The re-gifters, or maybe the re-grifters in the national media, the establishment media, they have been on full pelt about impeachment, really since about 20 minutes after President Trump became the president-elect on November the 8th, that fateful day in 2016. I really reckon this really culminated in what we saw on the night rather of impeachment itself, when the Washington Post went out and celebrated at the... Which pub was it? It was the Dubliner on Capitol Hill. Actually, don't like that pub so much. I'm not an Irish pub guy. No offense to the Dubliner. I'm more of an English pub kind of guy. So you can catch me at the Elephant and Castle or one of the other English pubs in Washington D.C. But they went down to the Dubliner and they tweeted out the image of them celebrating there, and they said "Merry Impeachmas." This was them effectively celebrating the attempted coup, the attempted removal of the sitting president, the 45th president of the United States. And it's not a surprise, guys, necessarily to see that. The thing that shocked me more was that they were shocked that they shouldn't have received the treatment. They got ratioed on Twitter. They ended up having to remove the tweet. Matt, I want to start with you. What did that on impeachment night tell you about the way the Washington Post, of course, they deleted that tweet. The tweet died in darkness as I saw the tweet from the Bongino Report.
Yeah, that was my joke at 6:30 in the morning. Yeah, no, listen, I mean, I wouldn't even say an open secret the media leans left. It's just openly known, yet once we point it out, it gets denied. So, I mean, it was just there right in our faces. They deleted the tweet, and my favorite part was their excuse where they said, oh, it was just misinterpreted.
Yeah, we got it wrong.
As if there could be any other meaning behind Merry Impeachmas, where 4 or 5 people who don't want Trump to be president are all together. Like, what else am I supposed to glean from that?
Greg.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, that's what I saw, and I don't know, it's not surprising. I mean, there was that famous Chris Cillizza, I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong, or Cillizza, the guy from CNN. He has that tweet from 2 or 3 years ago where he says, reporters don't work for a side or root for a side, period. I feel like you could just reply to that tweet all day with the media's reaction to impeachment, and I'm contemplating it, by the way.
I think that's right. I want to bring Greg Manson on this.
You
Greg?
mentioned the caption, but what stood out to me was the wide smiles, the pure happiness.
They were grinning from ear to ear like Cheshire cats.
Exactly.
And clinking their glasses, etc., etc. That was I think just the culmination of all of this, the disturbed and deranged reaction to the impeachment of a sitting president, which we have been told, guys. Remember, we had been told from day one from Nancy Pelosi that this is a prayerful and mournful occasion. Doesn't matter that Rashida Tlaib is herself grinning while selfie videoing herself walking onto the House floor to cast that vote in favor of impeachment, and then you have the media reaction like this. Also, there's something else. There's a lot of other things that stood out, and we'll go through them bit by bit. And really, the one that I like to come back to a lot is Don Lemon. And honestly, I don't know why. I suppose I'm a bit of a masochist, but almost every night I make sure that when Don Lemon's on, I have my television tuned to CNN, because it's kind of gleeful to watch him like having these meltdowns. But at the same time, he does believe, because he's putting them on, he's an actor. He does believe that he's convincing his audience of something by doing this whole like, oh my God, I can't believe today that the president actually tweeted what he tweeted. Is this guy insane? And he has all this dead air after he makes these statements as if he's saying something truly. This is the thing that gets me about CNN, and they've got a couple of people that do this, right? They stare down the lens and they make these statements in these breathy voices, and they go, isn't this crazy, you guys? But what's crazy is a man expecting a reaction from a camera lens, Matt.
And the thing about Trump, too, when they go, can you believe Donald Trump tweeted this? I'm like, yeah, I actually wouldn't expect anything different. Are you kidding me? Like, we've seen the guy in the public eye for 30 or 40 years now, and we know how he acts, and this is largely consistent with it. So, what am I missing here, kind of?
Well, didn't these guys all used to rub shoulders with Donald Trump in New York, and at these socialite parties and these cocktail parties, and at the White House Correspondents Association dinner? Didn't they get a gauge for how zero Fs this guy gave during that whole time? Why is this surprising to them now, or is it not? And is this faux outrage we're seeing nightly from Don Lemon?
Well, it has to be faux. Like, there are things that right-wingers will say that are so obviously trolling that the left now is apoplectic about. Like, I remember, and I actually almost tweeted this myself, something along these lines, but I figured libs will go apoplectic, so I kind of held back. But Mike Huckabee said something to Trump where he's like, I'm looking forward to the next 12 years of your presidency. And people acted as if that was a serious comment. And you could search it on Twitter, and it was trending as if it was a legitimate comment. And it's like, you have to, and it's just the great irony is there's this talking point on the left that I guess we on the right think that the only scandal under Obama was that he wore a tan suit. And it's like, you guys will react to literally every single thing Trump says that's minuscule, and you're the ones who are going to accuse us of making up scandals. It just seems a bit ridiculous. There's a scandal every hour almost, at least according to the Washington Post.
Republicans pounce on Obama's tan suit, but Democrats calmly react and give their august analyses to President Trump's Twitter feed. That's the dichotomy that we're facing here. The democracy dies in darkness thing is a very interesting strapline for the Washington Post that they adopted on the day I think that President Trump was inaugurated. And without giving too much away, because I do talk to these people from time to time, you'll run into these guys at cocktail parties or on the terrace at Morton's, here downtown in Washington, D.C., and I do talk to them. We remain cordial in person. But I remember one of them telling me once, I said, hey, listen, just tell me quite honestly, would you have changed the strapline of the Washington Post to democracy dies in darkness if Hillary Clinton was elected? And he looked at me kind of ashen-faced. He went, I suppose you're right, we wouldn't have. And I said, well, then don't you see that you're a partisan rag? You are doing that because a Republican, and especially a Republican like Donald Trump, was elected, and it takes like a prompt. It's so strange. It takes a real firm prompt for them to even realize who they are and what they're doing, Matt.
Well, the thing is, and I think I have an observation I've had over the years, that there's almost like a default liberalism in life, depending on where you grow up. So, if you're completely apolitical it's very likely, even like the authors you read in high school or middle school growing up are going to be liberal. Any, fan or any musicians or celebrities you're fans of, if they post political messages on their social media, it's going to be left wing. So, I almost can kind of get how there are certain liberals out there that have literally never interacted with a right wing idea. Like when I went to college, there were plenty of liberals I befriended where I was the first Republican they've met in their entire life. And, it's maybe we almost can't blame some of them. Something else that comes to mind is
Matt, hang on right there, because we got to go to a quick commercial break. Got to pay some bills here on War Room Impeachment. Just hang on the line. War Room Impeachment. Matt Palumbo, Greg Manns, Raheem Kassam. Boxing Day. We'll be right back after this short break.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room Impeachment
on the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Welcome back to War Room Impeachment. I'm Raheem Kassam, joined in studio on Boxing Day, the 26th of December, the year of our Lord 2019, joined by Greg Manns here in the historic Breitbart Embassy on Capitol Hill, joined down the line by Matthew Palumbo, the content manager for BonginoReport.com. Matt, just want to throw it back to you, but real quick, give us, and we'll get into this in detail further on in the show as well, but just give people a review of Bongino Report, what it is, when it started, why you started it, and how's it going?
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically like Drudge Report if it didn't look like it was made, 40 years ago and never updated. We were inspired to start the site just by the widespread perception that, Drudge was going left wing. And the more we look into it, there is obvious evidence that is the case. You can just, your eyes aren't deceiving you when you go to the homepage. And it does seem very likely now that Matt actually did sell the website. So it's not like it's actually him behind it or we have any grudge against him. But, it was a once great website. And we see that they're losing. I think they've lost 30 million viewers in the past 6 months, and we figure, well, if they're leaving, there's a demand.
Yeah, where are they going?
Viewers. So yeah, exactly. So hopefully we're going to take them.
So Matt Drudge and the Drudge Report. Let's just give the listeners an idea of like how iconic this was as the aggregator for political content. Drudge was featured in The West Wing. He's been on all sorts of television shows. Very, very important in Washington, D.C. People used to click refresh on the Drudge Report consistently throughout the day to see if their bosses were mentioned, if their lines were being taken, what the important stories of the day were in the ranking order on the DrudgeReport.com. But as you say, in recent months, at least across the last year, and definitely in recent months, Drudge seems to have kind of lost his way. You reckon that Matt Drudge has sold up?
That's what I'm reading. In fact, Rasmussen, the polling agency, and I have been talking about it a lot recently, and they had, I mean, it's not conclusive proof, but remember they pointed out that I guess Matt Drudge had like an exclusive subscription to their site, and he would go through their raw data before it was released, and then kind of have his own unique conclusions that you wouldn't see anywhere else whenever Rasmussen would have new data out, and he's noticed that stopped entirely. So. There were, I guess, behavioral changes that would indicate something else is going on. And the second thing is, it just doesn't make sense that Drudge would change this ideologically. Like, even if he just started not liking Trump, you would keep all the same conservative policies minus the Trump stuff. So, it just doesn't make sense that the whole site seems to have done that leftward turn. And even more bizarre, and I can't explain this, there was a Drudge Report Twitter account that was inactive for months. Like within a day or two of us launching Bongino Report, it started becoming really active again, and then kind of started trash talking us. And not to toot my own horn, but we totally destroyed them. But then after that, quote unquote ratio, they put in their description that they're actually just a fan account. But it just seemed like an odd situation because it's like why would you feel like you have skin in the game, and why would you reactivate the account right as we went live? So I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if that account actually is loosely affiliated with them, and that's the new people running the show. But, we had that weird altercation with someone who's probably not actually Matt Drudge.
And you guys are going great guns at the moment. I mean, I know whenever you guys throw a link up to warroom.org, which is our site, we get a ton of traffic from you guys, and we're very grateful for it. We've mentioned the Bongino Report, I think 3 or 4 times over the course of the last couple of weeks here on the podcast and the radio show, and on americasvoice.news as well, and we've clipped the videos of that too. Just tell us a little bit about what are you aiming to do here, and tell us a little bit about why is it called the Bongino Report? Who's Dan Bongino?
Yeah, so Dan is someone who I've been working with or close friends with for, I'd say, 5 or 6 years now. He was, I guess, when I met him in 2013, he was, actually, I think he had less Twitter followers than I do. He was mainly like co-hosting different radio shows, and he was extremely, extremely talented at it, and, worked his way up to being a Fox News contributor. Him and I authored a book together called Spygate in 2018 that was very successful. He's been all over that scandal. So, yeah, and also I think he has one of the top, if not the top, conservative podcast in the country now. That's just been growing explosively over the years. And, I've been working with him semi-regularly for the past 2 years or so. I did a column called Debunk This that accompanies his podcast where, people just send me liberal nonsense to disprove. And then, it's kind of evolved over the years. And, he had the idea for the website once Drudge was kind of going down the tubes and just, gave me a call. And within a few weeks, we had it up. So that's the story. But
by the way, Dan Bongino's podcast is absolutely amazing as well, and it's one of the top ones in the country. We launched War Room Impeachment in October, and when we launched, I made sure to look at like where everyone was, what the positions were, and Dan is just consistently up there, and I like to think that at some point we'll be jockeying for position alongside you guys. But it's a great testament. The website is Bongino, Bongino report.com. Is that right?
Yeah, you're correct. Yep.
Absolutely. Greg Mans is in the studio with us. Greg, how important, you've seen this over the last couple of weeks, especially the whole impeachment saga. Matt Drudge and a lot of these other websites are not really covering it in the detail, the granularity that we get into here on War Room Impeachment. But how important are sites like Bongino Report for us?
It's absolutely critical to balance out the narratives that are coming into the mainstream media, the morning shows, that people can actually have a site that they check regularly that's giving them everything going on aside from War Room Impeachment. Yeah, it's a great asset to have on the right, and for conservatives should really embrace this new platform.
Yeah, and I think as Matt said, looks a little bit more up to date than Drudge had his. So let's talk a little bit about those mainstream media narratives that you bring up there, Greg. What did you want to raise? I mean, this is the media show. We're going to talk about how the media has reacted to this impeachment. We talked about the Washington Post. We've talked about Don Lemon. Those are the easy ones. Tell us what else has been going on. Not just what they said, but what they're not covering as well.
So, the day of the impeachment, Vice News published a digital piece with a congressman from Arizona with a quote, "We're going to keep impeaching him until we get our way." That is from an Arizona Democratic congressman on the day of impeachment.
I thought this was a once-in-a-lifetime, prayerful, mournful. Nancy Pelosi is really regretful that she has to do this. Why is there this divergence between Nancy Pelosi and her party?
Well, the left's battle armor of impeachment is on, and it's not coming off.
It's been on. Yeah. It stayed on. It will stay on, is what they're telling us. After this impeachment comes another impeachment and another impeachment and another impeachment if they need to. Especially if President Trump wins again next year, they're going to go double hard on this whole thing. And here's why. Here's my thesis that I said on this show several months ago now when we first launched it. This is nothing to do with Ukraine. This is nothing to do with national security. This is nothing to do with U.S. taxpayer money. This is to do with a broad foreign policy dispute over America First, and it's to do with what they really dislike, which was America First voters, Trump voters out there in the country, in the real country. People who were tired, and you've seen from the Afghanistan papers, of the lies over 18 years told to them by the generals, told to them by everyone else. The lies that keep permeating into policy positions, into policy papers, and into how the U.S. government spends U.S. taxpayer money. That's what this impeachment is about. They want to get away with more Afghanistans. They wanted to get away with it in Ukraine. When the State Department and the European Union came together in 2013, by the way, I was there this time of year in 2013. I was in the Maidan Square in Kiev. I saw it all take place myself. I'm going to get into all of that and more of the media bias after this break. War Room Impeachment. Greg Mans, Matt Palumbo, Raheem Kassam will be right back.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room Impeachment.
On the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Welcome back. War Room Impeachment. Boxing Day, the 26th of December, the year of our Lord 2019. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas and are ready to get back into the fight. Two fighters joining me here in the Capitol Hill studio. One down the line, Matt Palumbo, BonginoReport.com's content manager, and I couldn't think of a better person to be running such a great aggregator site. And Matt and I have got to know each other over the last couple of weeks, going back and forth on the impeachment saga. He has some great insights, especially into the media, given that his job is literally to trawl through the media all day, every day, picking out the best stories that deserve to be up there on BonginoReport.com. Greg Mann's also joining me in studio, one of our fantastic War Room impeachment War Room researchers. Greg, I want to throw it to you real quick and then bring Matt in a couple more examples. This is the media show. We're talking about the media's reactions, how they're framing this whole thing. I find it very difficult, which is why I wrote on the day of impeachment, wrote that 1,700 word piece, which at the top of it had the vote results as they came in live that Matt and Dan Bongino were kind enough to throw up as the lead, the Mac Daddy on the Bongino Report. And that's why I wrote this thing, 1,500 words of explainer behind all this stuff, how we got there, what the truth was, where we're going next, because it's so hard to find truth now. Shouldn't be the case when you consider, you've got the paper of record, the New York Times, misleading people, editorializing. Greg, what else are we seeing?
So the day after the impeachment vote, New York Times came out with a headline: Putin hints at holding power past 2024 and defends Trump on impeachment.
What does that tell you? When you're writing a headline, if you're a headline writer, why do you pick that?
So they're trying to equate Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin into a category of dictatorship.
They're trying to create a meme. The problem is they've been trying to create this meme, this Trump-Putin meme now for how many years? Nearly 4 years. And look, memes, they will take root or they will die very quickly, right? And this one they have been trying to make this a meme for 4 years, trying to get this to catch on. It's that line from Mean Girls, right? Is stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen, right? Stop trying to make Russia collusion happen. It's not going to happen. Matt,
yes.
want to bring you in on this. Let's talk about this. I want to ask you this question. You're the editor of one of the most important aggregation sites, news sites in the country now, BonginoReport.com, already soaring up there. I've been checking you guys out on the Alexa rankings and all that stuff. Everyone's got to be keeping their eye on it now and refreshing, especially on the conservative side. But you have a hard job. I mean, you're working 15, 16-hour days. Your job is to trawl through the news, find the interesting nuggets, find the buried leads, make sure you're presenting them in an accurate, fair representation of what's going on. That seems to me like that's an increasingly hard job when the media out there now is just an extension of the Democrat Party.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, it's not hard in the sense of I'm not breaking a sweat or anything, but it's hard in the sense that I'm reading at a minimum 50 articles a day, because that's about what I post.
Wow.
40 to 50, and obviously I would say 75% of what people send me is nonsense, so I don't publish it. Now I'm not sitting down and reading all of those. I am able to skim those and kind of tell right away whether or not I'm going to take it, and if it does seem to meet my criteria, then I'll read and digest the whole thing. So, it's more, I would say, like, time consuming and then just more mentally exhausting than anything. Like, I've noticed there are some nights, as I get later into the night, I start noticing I'm making more typos here and there, little things like that. But, nothing backbreaking by any sort of imagination. But, you mentioned the New York Times earlier, and it reminded me of a recent story of theirs I went through. There's this huge story that Trump signed an executive order that redefined Judaism as a nationality. And then the Times reported it. You can look on Twitter. I think Judaism was the #1 trending topic, and it was all the typical Nazi hysteria of this is it, it's finally the end, Trump's going to kill us all. Turns out the New York Times just made it up. There was no mention of that whatsoever in the executive order. All it did was protect Jews on college campuses. It was just so ridiculous, and they stood by their reporting too. And I just don't. I was going to say, who do they think they're fooling? But apparently enough people where they're going to keep it up.
It's incredible, driving division and causing people to panic like this. You know, what do they say, Greg? What did Chris Eliza say? The media doesn't come down on either side or whatever.
They don't root for a side or something along those lines. Yeah,
it's one of the most offensive and egregious abuses of power, to use one of the phrases we've heard very often. Is that they didn't earn this trust, by the way. The Washington Post reporters, the New York Times reporters that you see today, they didn't earn this trust. It's the people that came before them and the people that came before them that built up this trust, built up this capital, worked hard, slogged hard, protected their sources, reported responsibly. Not always, but more often than not. And these guys now, these college kids graduating 21, 22 years old, going on to be beat reporters on Capitol Hill, they are the ones burning this trust. We've got to take another quick commercial break. Matt Palumbo, Greg Manns, Raheem Kassam here in War Room Impeachment. We'll be right back after this.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room Impeachment.
On the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Welcome back. War Room Impeachment. Raheem Kassam, Matt Palumbo, Greg Manns, Stephen K. Bannon, and Jason Miller are on assignment. This is Boxing Day, episode 89 of War Room Impeachment. This show that really got started on the John Fredericks show, on the John Fredericks Radio Network, and has expanded exponentially since. One of the top podcasts out there at the moment as well, on Apple, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, all the rest. America's Voice.news, the Salem Radio Network, Newsmax Television, the fastest growing cable news channel in the United States of America. On all those platforms and more, you can find War Room Impeachment. We are very grateful to be joined by Matt Palumbo. He's the content manager for BonginoReport.com, which is going to be, if not already, the single most important news aggregator and site on the political right. Its founder, Dan Bongino, obviously has a very influential, famous podcast. He's on the television, the radio, all the time. Matt Palumbo, really the what do you like to call it? The organ grinder behind the site, Matt?
I don't know, mastermind.
The genius.
Anything works, really.
Absolutely. And Greg Mann's the mastermind of the War Room here, and warroom.org as well. Okay, guys, I want to bring it back to something that we were talking about amongst ourselves in the break that just hit me as a very important topic. We're talking about media and how the media has covered this impeachment stuff. Let me go through real quick for you guys both in this segment. The top iTunes chart, the podcasts, right? Let me read to you. Number 1, New York Times. Number 2, NPR. Number 4, Michael Moore. Number 5, Rachel Maddow. Number 6, This American Life. Number 7, Crooked Media's Pod Save America. Number 8, NPR. Number 9, the New York Times 1619. Number 12, 538 blog. Number 13, NPR News. Number 14, Crooked Media again. Number 15, BBC News. They are dominant. Sprinkled amongst there, you have Ben Shapiro, you have Dan Bongino, and you have Mark Levin. The only 3 on the political right in that top 15. They dominate news in terms of output, the political left. They dominate news in terms of output on CNN, MSNBC, BBC, all of them. They dominate all these things in terms of how much they're outputting and what resources they have. But time and time again, whether it's social media, digital platforms, whether it's Fox News versus CNN, and whether it's on impeachment itself, as public opinion shows us, Matt, they lose. They lose the narrative, they lose the country, and they're losing this impeachment battle. President Trump is up in the polls. Nancy Pelosi is not just upside down with Republicans, not just upside down with moderates and independents. She's also losing vast swathes of her own party. Jeff Van Drew switching parties as a result of her impeachment process. Jeff Van Drew refusing to vote alongside the Democrats on impeachment day. What does this tell us about just how the process is going, Matt?
Well, I mean, it's almost incredible. There's this famous study that I think 7% of journalists are Republicans. And despite that fact, the media is actually losing the narrative war on impeachment. And it's a rare case. I mean, normally when there's a media narrative, people tend to eat it up, whether it be, I don't know, the Flint water crisis or the Amazon on fire. But in this case, when it has to do with Trump, Trump has, I think, the most stable approval rating of any president in history. It never bounces around more than, I think, 10 percentage points in any direction. And, it's because he's the kind of polarizing figure that everyone's more or less made up their mind on. So all the people that like him are going to support impeachment. And then a certain percentage of the people who don't like him are going to say to themselves, well, I don't like the guy, but the charges are nonsense, so why would I support them? And it makes me think, like, what if 20% of journalists are Republicans or 30%? How much could we sway the narrative back then? But they're doing a terrible job. And I think my favorite part of it is like these little ironies in that on major announcement dates, like announcing the articles or announcing the impeachment inquiry or announcing that they were going to proceed forward with the articles, those were all days when you'd see support for impeachment actually fall. And in fact, the day after Trump literally rallied through the impeachment vote, if you look at the betting markets, gamblers were waging more money on Trump than at waging more money on Trump to win the 2020 election than at any other point in history. So it just completely backfired. And, they're saying they're going to continue impeaching again if they fail. And I say go for it. I mean, no one wants it. So you're just going to flush yourself more seats.
And on impeachment day, I believe the Trump campaign raising a record amount of money over the course of a single day. I mean, I saw some estimates had 5 million. And then later on in the day, I saw some estimates went up to 11 million. I don't know.
Just last week, Trump raised more than the top 4 Democrats did individually in the past quarter.
Individually or put together?
Individually, not put together, but still, than any individual candidate, and that's for the past quarter. It's 3 months. A week.
I'm hoping we're not far off from altogether being outraised by the Trump campaign. Greg, what do you make of this? I mean, look at all this. I mean, you got Rachel Maddow, Michael Moore. These are the titans of the left dominating the podcast sphere. That means that, by the way, the reason that they're on the top there means that more people are listening to them, but public opinion is still moving against them. What does that tell you? Does it mean that their arguments, that their narratives are not as convincing as ours?
Well, I think there's still that silent majority out there, along with the grassroots supporters of the president. And the more that the left media puts their product out there, it's just not cutting through, and they're absorbing the information but rejecting it.
Give us some. Do you have any more examples there, Greg, of media things, media bias, examples of where throughout this impeachment process we've perhaps seen things that embarrass them, that fundamentally change people's minds about them? I mean, I have a metric ton, frankly. I think we got to talk in the next segment, I think, about the New York Times putting up Rick Wilson and John Weaver and George Conway, these Lincoln Republicans. They had this big op-ed on the morning of impeachment. They were saying, we oppose the president, we oppose President Trump, and here's why we do it. It turns out that John Weaver had accepted a lobbying contract with Rosatom, the Russian state-owned gas company, the company that was in the Uranium One scandal. This is who John Weaver, the former advisor to John McCain and John Kasich and John Huntsman, there's a lot of Johns going on here, John Weaver, and this is who the New York Times is holding up as their person that can oppose Trump, who's supposedly in the pocket of Putin. I'll tell you who's in the pocket of Putin is the guy who accepts a lobbying contract from Russian state assets like Rosatom. And here's the thing. He may have nixed that contract, as he says he did, after he was exposed by the Daily Beast and others. That's John Weaver, the so-called Republican strategist who opposes this president, alongside Rick Wilson, who hasn't worked in politics for about 30 years. We got to go to a quick break now, Greg. I see you're chomping at the bit to get in. We're going to come to your analysis and Matt's analysis right after these short messages on War Room Impeachment.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room Impeachment
on the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Boxing Day special War Room Impeachment, episode 89 here on the John Fredericks Radio Network. I'm Raheem Kassam, joined in studio by Greg Manns. Matt Palumbo, content manager at the Bongino Report, has joined us over the course of this program. Make sure you're checking out Bongino, Bongino, report.com. and also warroom.org. I want to throw it over to you guys now. Hey, Anna Navarro, Rick Wilson, and Jennifer Rubin. If I were to, hang on, if I were to, I know it's just a guttural reaction. If I were to believe the media, if I were to believe MSNBC, the Washington Post, all these guys, they're the Republican strategists. They represent the Republican Party. They're the ones out there making decisions. But then that's not true. Greg first, Matt, respond.
No, the outlets like MSNBC, CNN, the Washington Post with Jennifer Rubin, they try and make the point, but it fails miserably, that they are the Republican brain trust when in actuality they're just never Trump hacks.
And these guys, and Matt, jump in here, these guys are out of work effectively as far as anything on the right is concerned. I mean, Rick Wilson hasn't done anything for a couple of decades in Republican politics. Jennifer Rubin has not been a conservative in a very long time. Goodness knows when the last time anybody wanted Anna Navarro's strategic advice. How do they get away with this? I mean, they're lying to people. These are not Republicans, and they're not strategists.
Well, the thing I would say is, like, listen, you guys are obviously liberals, so just identify yourself as such. Like, I would be fine with Jen Rubin and well, I wouldn't be fine with them, but I would be more fine with them if they didn't pretend that what they were pushing was conservative. Like, there's this whole group of conservative commentators that are in no way conservative, and there's no equivalent on the left. Like, Dave Rubin, the guy from the Rubin Report, he changed his views, and he no longer refers to himself as a leftist in the way that he used to. And it's like, okay, that's what happens. You change your beliefs, you should adapt what you call yourself. And, these people made their money in Republican Party politics. They changed and I guess decided betraying their own party is the only way they're going to be noticed them on the other side. So, I'm sorry, I don't mean to ramble on, but one more point. You mentioned that New York Times article where the premise of the article was like these four Republicans are leading the charge against impeachment.
Yeah.
Only one of them was a registered Republican. I can't remember which one, but I don't think Rick Wilson is anymore.
No.
George Conway certainly is not.
Nope.
So it was 25% true, even the headline.
It's extraordinary stuff. I want to thank you guys for joining us here on this very special Boxing Day episode of War Room Impeachment. You can check out all the news at www.warroom.org. And make sure you favorite it, subscribe, leave us a review, rank us, all of that stuff. And also, which we want you to do as a very special favor for us, is go over to the Bongino Report. That's Bongino report.com. That's where Matt Palumbo does all his fancy footwork in bringing you all the best news, all the things that you need to be reading. So make sure you're putting that in your favorites. Matt and Greg, thank you so much for joining us here today on Boxing Day. We'll return with another episode, brand new episode of War Room Impeachment tomorrow, 9 a.m. The John Fredericks Radio Network will be right back.